Uh, Priya madam, probably we can get started. It's been 5 minutes and I think we are full. People may not be able to log in more than this.
Can we start, sir?
Yes, let's start.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Do one thing at a time, and while doing it, put your whole soul into it to the exclusion of all else. Good afternoon, one and all, for the webinar on cryptocurrency, followed by validatory program of Brain Tonic 2.0. I, Ms. Priya Miss, Assistant Professor, Department of ECE, and IEEE CA Student Chapter Mentor, is the Master of Ceremony for the day. Now, it's time to welcome all the dignitaries. So, I request Dr. Ravichandra, HOD, Department of ECE, and IEEE Branch Counselor, MIT Mysore, to welcome the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Priya. Thank you for giving over to me. It's a very apt technical webinar which we are having today. I welcome one and all to this program, which is organized by Department of ECE MIT Mysore in assistance with IEEE Student Branch. And we are very much fortunate to have Dr. Vishal Saraswat, a very distinguished expert on cryptography, and his book figures out in top 100 best books of all times in the ratings, and he has had several papers published on cryptography, and he is currently crypto expert in Robert Bosch. So we are very fortunate to have you, sir. On behalf of MIT Mysore and Department of ECE and IEEE Student Branch, I welcome you to this webinar.
Thank you, Ravi.
And yes, and I do welcome, probably in their absence or on YouTube, all the management. Basavaraj, who is one of our contact on. He was judge for our previous event, Brain Tonic 2, who is a technical architect. And I welcome the management committee members who are there, who have been able to log in. We have had tremendous registration for this program. All credits to Dr. Vishal and his reputation, and definitely the organizers' effort. And IEEE coordinators who have made it possible. I also thank and welcome Dr. Murali, who has been a constant support for us, Dr. Vasudev T, and Secretary MIT Mysore for this particular event webinar. And it is a privilege to have you, Dr. Vishal. Let us not waste too much time on this. Let us please proceed on to the actual limelight of the program. Over to you, Professor Priya. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to welcome all.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of IEEE Student Branch, Branch and Department of PCMIT Mysore. I welcome you all to this webinar. Cryptocurrency is to share knowledge on cryptocurrency than our Honorable Chief Guest of the day, Dr. Saraswat. Now, I request Mrs. Renuka Singh, IEEE RAS Student Chapter Mentor and Assistant Professor, Department of PC, MIT Mysore, to introduce our today's Chief Guest. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priya. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries present here. It's my privilege to introduce our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Vishal Saraswat. Dr. Vishal Saraswat is a crypto expert and the security consultant in the product security group at Robert Bosch, Bangalore, India. Dr. Saraswat began his research career at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, India in 2000 and has received his PhD in cryptography from University of Minnesota, Minneapolis. He has held regular and visiting positions at a variety of institutions including Indian Institute of Technology, Jammu, Hyderabad University, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, SPJ School of Global Management, Mumbai, CRR Advanced Institute of Mathematics and Statistics and Computer Science, Hyderabad, and University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, USA. His research interests include anonymity and privacy in communication protocols, searchable encryptions for cloud-based services, lightweight cryptography for IoT devices, post-quantum crypto for quantum-safe communication, active and passive crypto analysis, and hardware security, topics on which he has published several papers in reputed international journals and conferences. He has co-authored book on titled Introduction to Cryptography that makes cryptography more accessible for Indian undergraduate students and researchers and contributes regularly to popular media to raise awareness about cybersecurity among the non-specialists. In addition to teaching at the leading institute in India and USA, Dr. Saraswat has supervised several PhD, MTech, and MS students projects in cybersecurity and has organized and taught executive training programs on information security and cybersecurity for various entities including industry, intelligence agencies, defense organization, academic institution, and policymakers. Dr. Saraswat is the executive committee member of Cryptology Research Council of India and has served on an editorial boards of number of security and cryptographical journals and conferences. I feel very short of words to thank for your presence, sir, and for accepting our invitation. I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I request Dr. Murli S., President and Dean Research, MET Mysore, to share his thoughts with us. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon to all of you. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಪ್ರೀತಿಪೂರ್ವಕ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು. I'm very happy that actually we could get Dr. Vishal Saraswat after a long time. I think that's what Kulkarni told me, that actually after repeated request, I think we could get Dr. Saraswat. So I'm very happy that actually department during pandemic time conducting lot of activities apart from regular academic classes. Apart from that, to highlight what is happening around the world, just to highlight about this particular aspect. A lot of programs have been organized not only in ENC department, in other department also. I've been seeing, I'm witnessing a lot of programs. So, but nevertheless, this particular aspect, cryptography, is very interesting, and it is being considered as one of the leading technology, which is probably which will roll shortly, and a lot of people are working on this particular aspect. However, my knowledge is very much limited, but I'm very sure when I studied a lot of philosophical aspects, I learned that these kind of aspects were there even in Vedic period. See, encryption is not something new which is being adopted recently after development of this number system, much binary number system. Much prior to that, actually, a lot of innovation, lot of activities related to this were being used, because earlier days, the way in which the messages used to be communicated from one king to another king, one person to another person, without ensuring that actually it doesn't leak in between. So people try to use that actually. I studied in the literature of Vedic sciences that actually they were just following a mechanism called Katapayadi system. I don't know whether Saraswat is aware of this or not. So they were following a concept called Katapayadi system, wherein which every character which is there in any language for that matter, but at that time they were following only Sanskrit. So they used to give a specific number system for each and every character which will be followed. In fact, I tried before presenting to you actually. I tried for one of the specific character, and I could able to decipher it only when you know the specific thing. Katapayadi is basically a mechanism of encoding the characters, and there are two cryptographic methods they were just following. They were called as visionary cipher method, and another method is called affine. I mean, what we call in a current context called affine, cipher. So for each of the characters, including the vowels, actually they used to give, but sometimes it used to be overlapping. For example, as the name itself says, actually ka, ta, pa, ya used to have a number called 9. Like that, actually KHA, THA, PHA, YHA used to call encoded with a number called 8. Like that, they used to give codes for each of the. It is basically an encoding mechanism. After that, they were following a mechanism of modulo system. I mean, whatever the modulo that you are following, and for each of the character that they need to communicate, we need to communicate actually. That used to be divided by a specific number, and for each of the digit that you come out, you take the modulus and do the reverse of the number and send that as a script. So that they used to follow, and I tried this for Satyameva Jayate Nandrutham. So for this character, I tried today, maybe 1 hour before. I just tried, how exactly this encryption works. So and we have considered actually Bharat as one of the a character which is to be divided. So when you just take the Satyameva Jayate Nandrutam character as Yam, and the number to be divided is Bharat, then it is coming as 624. So for each of this character, you get 60061845117. This is the number that you get, and for each of this number, you have a modulo 10, and you get another number. And when you assemble this in a reverse order, you get Lasha, Sanar, Mara, Vatar. So this is the kind of character you get when you do this. And they used to send this number. Actually, instead of you are supposed to send Satyameva Jayate Nandrutam, you are sending this Lasha, Sanar, Mara, Vatar. So this is the crypt that you are sending it. At the receiving end, actually, they used to do the similar number system and take the same Bharat and have the modulo system and do the deciphering. And I tried it just 1 hour before, and we used to get it. I mean, having this encryption and decryption is being even followed in our Sanskrit literature also. This is what I found it out. So probably what Dr. Vishal Saraswat would be highlighting today would be a little more interesting, because he'll be obviously explaining on today's context and how exactly this will be used for currency system. So we are very much eager to listen to him. I'm very happy that IEEE ENC department is organizing such a wonderful program. On behalf of college, I welcome Vishal Saraswat, and Dr. Naresh Kumar is also there along with me. I wish you good luck. So I think he is also wishing good luck to all of you. So good luck, and ensure that you'll all be learning through this knowledge, through this knowledgeable person. So thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge and inspiring words. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. B.G. Naresh Kumar, sir, Principal, MIT Mysore, to share his thoughts with us.
I'm already here.
He just missed our year only, na?
I missed you. So you can talk.
Okay, sir.
We
Okay.
hear something from him also. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Vishal Saraswat. Dr. Vishal Saraswat, crypto expert, security design consultant, Robert Bosch, to start with the presentation. I request all the participants to stay muted. If any queries, kindly post it in the chat box, which will be taken up after the session. And also the feedback link will be shared soon after the talk. Kindly give your valuable feedback. Over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you all. So my presentation should be available to all of you. If it is not, just let me know.
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
All right, great.
Yes.
I will switch off my camera just to preserve bandwidth, just in case things, the network, etc., create issue. Okay. All right. So let's start. Okay. So my introduction is already there, so we'll skip this. So let's talk about what is currency. This is a huge group, but still I would want somebody to at least give an input. What do they think? What is currency? A couple of you who have some thing to say, can you give me your idea of currency?
Medium of exchange.
Medium of exchange, right? Yeah. So a currency medium is a medium of exchange. It's a unit of purchasing power. You can think of currency as a substitute for goods or services. You want some service from somebody, you can give this back as an substitution, or some common article for bartering. And we'll come back to all these topics in a bit. Let's go through the dictionary definition of currency. So currency is something that has a value as a medium of exchange. This something could be coins, banknotes, treasury notes, or anything. Okay, and we'll see some more examples in a couple of minutes. Also, this something should be in circulation. Okay? So, for example, we have this currency notes of 500 denomination 500 and 1000, which were valid up till 2016, somewhere in November, and now they are no more a valid currency. Okay? So, and is generally accepted. Okay? So, when we say something is currency, it should be acceptable to people, most people. So, for example, the Indian rupee is a currency in India, but it may not be a currency in USA, for example. So, currency should have this, at least these three properties as per the definition. So let's look at examples of currency through history. People in olden times in certain parts of the world, they used to use stone wheels, and this wheel picture you are seeing is a small, but it's actually a large wheel, almost 8 feet in diameter. They used to use these wheels as a currency. Okay? So they want to buy something, they want to do something, they'll store these wheels, or they'll exchange these wheels for goods. Even human beings have been used for currencies. So people, they will own humans, and they will exchange humans for goods and stuff. Knives have been used for currency, especially in China. In fact, as time progressed, these knives, they got smaller and smaller. They started using somewhere 2000 years ago, and slowly they just only you see the last end, the circular end, that part remained of the currency, and almost up till 1700 and even 1800, these circular coins were being used in China. Even salt has been used as currency. Okay? So in certain parts of Europe, when people will work, they will get salaries in salt. So they will just get bags and bags of salt or slabs of salt. Okay, and that has been used as currency. Gold, silver, metal, they have been used in currency as currency at least for the last 400 to 500 years, where they have used gold or silver or some other precious metal as currency. And finally, yes, we have coins and paper bills that we have used. So initially, when this paper bills were introduced somewhere in France, I think this could be exchanged for gold at a later date. Okay? And they actually represented a real amount of gold or silver that they actually represent. Okay, so if you take 1 rupee, you'll get 1 rupee worth of gold. So that's what a 1 rupee represented. And it almost in all countries, the currency was backed by gold. Okay? Until 1971, when US they disconnected this currency notes from gold, and their value did not represent the gold. Okay? So, but until 1971, that was true for most countries, and slowly after US backed off, many other countries also backed off. So let's see why humans went for currency over the barter system. So in barter system, what happens? You have a bag of mangoes, you want a bag of rice. What you do is you exchange your mangoes for rice, and you could do that. But if you want to do this, what you will need to do is you will need to find someone who has rice and wants mangoes. So if you have mangoes, somebody else has rice, but if that guy does not want mangoes, he may not give you the rice. Right? And then you have a bag of mangoes, and what if the values are not same? One bag of rice, one bag of mangoes, and that is something that has to be dealt with. Also, carrying the bag of rice with you all around would be convenient, or your bag of mangoes with you all around will be convenient. You want to go to the market, you want to get some things, you carry a big bag of mangoes over your head or on your cart and take it out, show your mangoes to everybody and try to exchange. And importantly, you will need to barter before the mangoes go bad. You're in the barter system. Most of the times, most of the goods that you are going to exchange, they would be perishable goods like mangoes, rice, wheat. Okay, most of the in olden times we had mostly farmers, right? When they were trying to do this, so they will need to do the bartering before these goods go bad. And you cannot store your this goods to accumulate wealth. So suppose right now you have 100 bags of mangoes, you think, oh, I can get a lot of things for these mangoes, but you cannot just store them indefinitely as a sign of your wealth. Okay? This you cannot say that, oh, I am rich by 100 mangoes. Even like in villages, at least in the villages that I have lived, somebody who has a lot of cows is considered rich. But unless you manage to find out how to breed these cows and keep those cows in a proper manner and feed them properly, you cannot maintain your wealth. Okay? That requires a lot of work, such form of currency. So with this barter system, now you can get an idea that what do we want from some currency. Okay? So yes, currency should be acceptable. So if you want going to take your currency to somebody, they should be willing to accept it. It should be recognizable. It should be when they take before they accept it, they want to recognize it. They want to understand that this is the correct currency. This currency should have some value in it. Okay? And usually value and scarceness, they are kind of related. Demand and supply in economy, if you look at it, if everybody had tons of gold in their house, okay, let's say now everybody has clay, but let's say the other way around, if everybody had gold instead of clay, then we won't value gold as much as we do now. So that's the idea that for currency to have value, it should be scarce. It has happened in past where governments they just produced a lot of currency and flooded the markets with a lot of currency notes, and the value of these currency notes went down. Uh, has happened in Germany, has happened in Zimbabwe, even in India. At some point, the value of currency went down, and has happened throughout history, throughout all parts of the world. And we'll revisit this again. We want the currency to be portable. We want it to be divisible. We want it to be durable. Okay? So these are some things that we want from a currency, and we'll try to, when we are talking about cryptocurrency, we'll ensure that these requirements are there. Let's also, when we are talking about currency, let's talk about some payment systems. So, what are payment systems? Payment systems basically they are some instruments which you can use instead of physical cash. You can pay using these instruments. Okay? So, so these payment systems they can consider like checks, money orders. They are traditional payment systems. Nowadays we have debit cards, credit cards, electronic transfers, internet banking, e-commerce, or now we have wallets Beam wallet or whatever wallet that we have. So these are different payment systems. Note that these payment systems they require a lot of infrastructure. You need an operational network. You need a sort of a clearing system that clears these payments. They would, in every country they will be governed by certain laws, rules, and standards. Sometimes international standards. Okay? And generally, there is some sort of a bank account will be linked to this payment system for monetary exchange. And these payment systems they'll require security, it will require identification regarding who is trying to access the system. It will require verifiability that all of the transactions. It may require reversibility of transactions. Okay? So, and there are many other security considerations that we might want to think of. So when you are setting up the payment system, you will need some sort of a trust in the payment system. When you are accepting some uh, somebody is trying to use their
I request all the participants to be on mute.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So let me continue. So when you receive money from someone, you need to trust the transfer. You need to trust the money. You need to verify the ownership of that money. You want to verify the transaction itself. You want these transactions to be fast. They should not take a lot of time. Think of it if you want to pay somebody using a credit card. You swipe the card in the store, and that to get the approval, that takes about 10 minutes. There will be a long queue at the store. And you want the transaction cost to be low. We are so used to using credit cards, but many places you might have noticed that when you use the credit card, they charge you more, or they'll say that, hey, you need to pay the transaction fees, and this transaction fees can be up to 2 to 3% of your actual transaction value. Okay? And you need liquidity, that the money you can get in money immediately whenever you want from this payment system. We spoke about clearing system, that this money should get cleared very quickly. Your money should not be on hold for a long time. And these payment systems, they should be able to control criminal behavior. And we'll talk about some criminal behavior in the next slides. Okay? All right. Before I actually jump into cryptocurrency, some requirements which are there, I want to put them out already, and then we'll get into cryptocurrency. Some requirements that we want. We want the cryptocurrency to be decentralized and distributed. Okay? The motivation here is like, why did cryptocurrency come into the picture? What is cryptocurrency? So the motivation when initial thoughts of cryptocurrency came into the minds of people, I think 88. I think that some other form, not necessarily called cryptocurrency, but something else, was being talked about, presented in academic circles, was that people did not trust the governments. Okay? They thought that when we use the currency used by the governments, there the government, they can control, they can watch, they can monitor. When you use bank transfer, bank can monitor, and the government can monitor, and police can monitor. And in it had happened, especially in US, in 60s and 70s, during this Vietnam War, or during the this evolution of the hippie culture, what we say, or many other terms are out there. People stopped trusting the government. They started believing the government as a bad organization in a way, as a villain sometimes. So, and there were reasons. There were many reasons, because the government doesn't tell you everything. Sometimes they do a lot of things which are not ethical or moral. One thing that many of the governments were doing, even USA and many European governments, and India and other China is still doing, if we believe news reports, that they do a manipulation of the value. Well, okay, at least you must have, most of you should have, would have heard that, let's say, a dollar is worth, let's say, 80 Indian rupees, okay? Or Bitcoin is worth, at some point it was almost $80,000 per Bitcoin. Okay? So with every currency, there's a value associated. So this, when the government who is printing this currency notes, they can control the value of this currency notes. So what you can, what we mean by value, what you can buy for a particular currency note. So let's say you have a 100 rupee note. The value of the 100 rupee note is means not. If you just say it's 100 rupee, then it doesn't mean anything. What you can do with that 100 rupee note. Okay? Your parents will tell you, or maybe grandparents will tell you, that way back when they were growing up, they could buy petrol for less than 10 rupees per liter. Okay? And they could buy, for 100 rupees, they could buy 10 liters of petrol or more than that. Okay? People will, let's say something else. Gold used to be so cheap, or they'll tell you, oh, the gold was so cheap or something, right? So the value of the currency note, that changes because what it can buy for you, that's the value, right? So government can manipulate this value. And so one day you had, think of, let's say, 2006 November. One day you had, let's say, 10 500 rupee notes, and you thought, okay, I have 5,000 rupees, I can buy a lot of things for 5,000 rupees. Let's say I can buy, I don't know, like 10 5 rupee notes, so I can buy 20 liters of petrol. Let's say petrol was cheap at that time. I don't know. Okay. So, but one day the prime minister announces, and next day those paper bills had no value to you. Okay. They were zero. Okay. So in that sense, this value can be manipulated. And then people did not trust the banks. Because banks, they can also manipulate a lot of things. These all banks, financial institutions, they also can manipulate the value of your money, of your currency. Okay? And the transaction costs, as I was talking about, like Visa, MasterCard, or other credit cards, when you swipe them, either you or the merchant, somebody is paying them. Okay, that's it. About 2% of the transaction cost. Okay, you buy something worth 1,000 rupees, 20 rupees has gone to this Visa, and people thought that this was just too much of fees to be paid. Also, what do we need from a cryptocurrency? Transaction security, and security could mean many things. We may want anonymity. So when what I do with my money, why should anybody else in the world know? Okay? So if I have cash and I take this 500 rupee note, go and give to somebody else, get some services, nobody gets to know what I'm doing with my money. Of course, somebody was tracking the serial numbers, which will require a lot of infrastructure. Okay? So That's anonymity. And privacy. Again, anonymity is where who is doing the certain action, we don't know who did it. Okay? So that is sometimes important to people. And then privacy. What I am doing, my actions, that is privacy. My confidentiality, if you would use that word, that what I am doing with my money, nobody should know. So anonymity has to do with the who part, privacy has to do with the what part. And then accountability. If I'm giving money to you, that should be accountable. Tomorrow I should not be able to say, no, I never gave the money to you, and that's because, and that money somehow should not come back to me. And some other things, properties that we need, and that depends from different cryptocurrencies that we have currently in the world. One huge thing with digital money, cryptocurrency, is that you can easily forge it. Because cryptocurrencies, they are basically what they are is some digital file that you are carrying. So the traditional currency that you have a 500 rupee note, you have a 100 rupee note, a dollar, making a forgery, creating a duplicate note, false note, forged note, that is not an easy task. Okay? That requires a lot of infrastructure, that requires a lot of skill. It's costly. For more, if for a single individual who is just trying to think that okay, for my income I'll do this, create false notes, it's possibly not even worth it, unless you are a big organization or something. But forging digital currency is not so difficult. It's just a file you can we all are used to doing copying and pasting. While I prepared these slides, I did so much of copying and pasting from my many different slides from so much of internet. Right? So digital currency can be easily forged. And if it can be forged, if I have one particular piece of currency, I can just print many copies of it. I can create a lot of copies of it and try to use them for different transactions. So that would be called double spending. Okay? So if I say use the same currency, same unit to spend twice. How to stop it? So one of the initial ideas, and this idea was, of course, in the context of digital currency, it's a huge credit goes to the Bitcoin inventor Nakamoto, but has been around, and we'll talk about this. So we'll talk about public ledger, and yeah. So it's a very easy way to have a clearing system. This idea has been around for more than 2000 years. These public ledgers, they were written in stone. Okay, they were carved in stone, and this stone was kept in a public place, in the public square or something. Every transaction that is written in the stone, and once you write in the stone, you can't delete it, you can't change it. Uh, Everybody can verify because it's sitting there in the public. Okay? And transactions are not reversible. You can't change delete it just like that. Okay? You have to, once it is written in the stone, it's recorded, you can't delete it, as simple as that. And hard to commit fraud. If somebody wanted to commit fraud, if they wanted to do some sort of delete a transaction or spend the same, edit the record, they would have to get a new stone. They would have to do all this, record everything as it was, and just change what they wanted to change. Okay, and hope that nobody will notice. So this was the thing they were using like 2000 years ago. So in case of digital equivalent, what we do is to maintain a public ledger, one thing that we do is put timestamps. Every transaction that occurs, we put a timestamp to that transaction, and then we package this transaction and record it in the order it was carried out. Okay? So this timestamps also help us to manage the order and record it in a public manner. So you can think of it as you create a website that is public, everybody can access it, and you record it there, and everything is stored there. Okay? Usually you add something called a hash value. We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes. And you add these hash values to this transactions, sometimes to individual transactions at a time, sometimes to a group of transactions. You calculate the hash and put it there, and to maintain this irreversibility. Okay? And then we use this blockchains, which the topic today is about. These transactions are recorded in a community-built record of all transactions. So this record is maintained not just by one person, but by a community. And the way it is done is using a concept called proof of work, and we'll talk about that. And computer connected to a network, except the longest chain is accurate. This part we won't talk, we'll skip. Okay? We don't have so much time. So before we go into the blockchain and digital currency a little more, let me quickly talk a little bit about crypto itself. And one of the main things that is used in blockchains, that is what we call a hash function. I understand most of you are third year or fourth year students in your colleges. So you would have done some data structure class, and you should have seen at least hash tables and maybe even heard of hash functions. Okay. In general, what is a hash function? It is a function that basically takes a big input file and outputs a compressed input of usually of a fixed length and a fixed format. Okay. So it's useful. This data compression is very useful for handling arbitrary input data. It increases efficiency for a lot of purposes. For use in cryptography, this hash functions should fulfill these two particular security requirements. One is called collision resistance, and the other is called pre-image resistance. So what are these things? So collision resistance basically says that if you what we want is, we don't want that two different input values, they should go to the same output value. Well, in theory, it is always possible because hash is a collision function. So here, what we want is that it should be difficult to find such two inputs. Okay? So, and difficult means, what do I mean by difficult? That depends on your situation. Okay? So, in general, we just say it is computationally infeasible and define this infeasibility by our security requirement, how hard we want it to be, how difficult we want it to be. Okay? So it is computationally infeasible to find a collision, that is to find two distinct input values. So you want to find x and y not equal, such that h of x is equal to h of y. Okay? So this is what we call collision resistance, that two people don't collide, two inputs don't collide when you process them through this algorithm or function or however you want to call it. Okay? The other property that we want is pre-image resistance. That is, for a given hash value, so you are given some output, it is computationally infeasible to find y such that h of x is h of y. So again, even if you want to look at it, that you don't even know x, you just know that the output is some hash value. Your goal is to find an input for which this is the hash value of. Okay? So from a hash function, we want it from a cryptographic hash function, that given a hash value, you should not be able to find any input value. Okay? So these two properties, collision resistance and pre-image resistance, sometimes there is a concept of second pre-image resistance where you know, let's say x, and you can of course compute h of x, but now you have to find another y for which h of x is h of y. So for hash functions, we want these two properties. I won't go into any more details. If you have questions, you can ask me now, you can ask me at the end of the talk. Okay? So, used in many places. for storing passwords securely. Forget about this module 5. This is a part of a larger course that I conduct. So let me talk about password security. It is used for enforcing user commitment, and then there's a concept of one-way functions you won't go into right now. But with this hash function, as we said, these are easy to compute, hard to invert. That is the main point you want to take. Okay? That given some input string, you can very quickly compute the hash of this input string, but you can, given some output string, you cannot find out the input. Okay? So here is a list of some hash functions. Some of the popular hash functions used to be the MD family hash functions, but they are completely broken now. Don't use them. In fact, yeah, a group of Indian scientists, they also played a big role in breaking these hash functions. The most popular hash function right now is what we call SHA-256. It's part of the SHA-2 family. So SHA stands for Secure Hash Algorithm. Now we have SHA-3 also out, but it's not very popular yet. It's new, and there are a lot of libraries available. And yeah, so SHA-256 is one of the most popular hash algorithms. Also, in most of the cryptocurrencies, it is used, especially Bitcoin and Bitcoin. It's used. Okay, so let's So now that we have hash function, let's look at some of the cryptographic algorithms. Usually, when we say a cryptographic algorithm, it's a set of different algorithms and tools. Okay, it's not just one single algorithm. Okay. So, and in general, it consists of 3 algorithms. One is key generation. The other is either encryption or something computing a proof of data's integrity. Okay. And the third algorithm could be, let's say, decryption if you are working with an encryption algorithm. Okay, and if you are working with something to do with data's integrity, so in that case, you verify. So the first was to computation, the other was to do with verifying. So usually the key generation algorithm will need even cryptos and as their core or crypto tool. So they will use some parameter random number generators and as input. Then they will output your cryptographic credentials, which we call keys usually. Okay? But sometimes it could be a one single key. Sometimes it could be a set of keys. And sometimes they may also work with some other protocols and generate what we call certificates. We won't go into those things right now. Okay. All right. So let's quickly look at encryption algorithms. This encryption algorithm, actually, most So the encryption algorithms, they protect the confidentiality of the data either during transit or when stored. The way we is basically, let's say we have a user in crypto, we use these 2 users, Alice and Bob, a lot. Okay, so you have a user Alice. She wants to send a message to another user, Bob. What she does is she would usually take the encryption key, which was generated using the key generation earlier. She would encrypt the message, and after encryption, what the output is called ciphertext. She'll send the ciphertext to Bob. When Bob receives the ciphertext, it will take his decryption key, decrypt this, take this decryption key, ciphertext, let them put them as an input the decryption algorithm, and he should be able to get back the plain text message. Okay. And the property of ciphertext message is that a third person, an adversary, if they look at the ciphertext message, they should not be able to get any information about the plain text or the key. Okay. Especially the decryption key. Okay. All right. So then we have something called message authentication codes and MACs. This message authentication codes, they're in short called MAC. they protect the integrity and authenticity of the data, not confidentiality. And what will I see that if somebody changes the message, we'll get to know, and it also provides authenticity that you can be assured where the message came from. Okay? So let's say Alice wants to send a message to Bob. So what she does is she takes her message, lets it puts the message as an input to this MAC algorithm with a secret key. What it will do is it will generate a tag, authenticate what we call authentication tag or MAC tag for that message, and then she sends this message and the tag to the user Bob. The way it works is that when Bob receives this message, he can use his secret key, let it go through the verification algorithm with the contact they received. If the message that they received has been modified by anybody, then they will be able to detect the manipulation. Okay? If a third party they try to manipulate it, it can be detected. Okay, that's the goal. So key message encryption protects confidentiality only, that nobody will know what was in the message, and MAC will protect only integrity and authenticity, that if the message was changed, then it can detect. So if you want both properties, that you want to send some message to someone where nobody should be able to know what you have written in the message, what the information is contained, but you also want to ensure that if somebody tries to change that message, the recipient will get to know, then you have to use both these algorithms, the encryption algorithm and the MAC algorithm. So then, somewhere in 1970s, asymmetric key cryptography came into the picture, and usually in this up till 70s, when people were using cryptography, the recipient and the sender, they used to share these keys. Okay? They would have to first meet, and they will have to share these keys secretly, and use those secret keys to encrypt and decrypt. But as the world became more digital, as the world became more remote, where people were communicating with each other using signals or things like that, it was realized that sometimes two people might not be able to meet, and they would want to still communicate how to do that. That's where public key cryptography comes into picture. And what this used was the idea was to use this letterbox principle, where you have a letterbox and you put the lock on the messages in that box, but nobody without the right key can take these messages out of it. In this system, every person who wants to receive messages, they create their letterbox, put it out in the world. People, they can come, they can put their messages in this letterbox, and the recipient, when they want, they can open the letterbox, take out the messages. Okay? So that's a concept. Okay? And let's see the ideas. So these keys that are used in the asymmetric cryptography, we have the concept of a public key and a private key. Okay? So public key can be used by everyone and is publicly known. On the other hand, private key is known only to a single user, okay? And it's they keep it secret and they keep it protected. So this public key is used for non-critical operation, that is encryption of messages or verification of signatures. We'll talk about signatures in the next slide. And the private key that is used for critical operations like decryption of the message. So that if you have a ciphertext, this secret key has to be used to decrypt it, and this secret key is also used to generate signatures. So let's look at a scenario of public key encryption. So we have Alice who wants to send confidential message to Bob. So Alice and Bob, they are going to do these steps. So Bob is going to generate a key pair, a public key PK and a secret key SK. Now Bob is going to publish this public key, okay, and it will make it publicly available, or you can just simply send it to Alice directly. You don't need, if anybody sees it, no problem. Now, when Alice wants to send the message to Bob, she is going to encrypt her message using this public key and send the ciphertext to Bob. When Bob receives this encrypted message, there is a secret key and decrypt the ciphertext to get the actual message was. So usually this public key encryptions, they are very good at key handling and scalability, that if there are a lot of users in the system, you can keep adding more systems. The system can be very dynamic and you don't have to worry about it. Usually they are slower than symmetric algorithms. The users share. I won't go more into this, but some of the popular encryption schemes, they are based on elliptic curves called ECIES, elliptic curve encryption scheme, or the RSA-based schemes like RSA-OAP and RSA-PKCS. Well, version 1, now 1.5 is a popular one. For given message, usually a signature is attached to the message to prove integrity and authenticity. The signature is usually a function of the private key, but also of the message. And so, how does it? Let's say again, we have a scenario where Bob wants to send a message to Alice and wants to prove the message's authenticity and integrity. Okay? So, what Bob is going to do is they are going to generate a public key, a public verification key, and a secret signing key. They are going to publish this public key and they can send it to the recipient directly. If adversaries see this public key, no problem. Now, when they want to send a message, they are going to generate a signature of this message using the secret key. So they take the message as an input, secret key as input, and now the signature is generated. So when they send the message, they send the signature along with it. And when Alice receives this message, she can let it go through the verification algorithm using the public key of Bob and verify whether the signature is correct or not. If the signature is not correct, they don't accept it. And the good thing about digital signatures compared to Max is that it achieves something what we call non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is where if Bob has sent a message, if Bob has created a signature of this message, in future, Bob cannot say that I never created signature. I never sent this message to Alice. So that is very important. That is what we call commitment. If you have done something, you should not be able to go back on your word. So and that's what is very important in of digital currency. That when you have transferred, let's say, $1 million to me, you should not be able to go back to the bank tomorrow and say, hey, I never transferred this $1 million to Vishal. Okay? So that's the point. Again, some of the most popular signature schemes, they are based on elliptic curves, ECDSA and EDDSA. And then we have RSA-based schemes, which are very popular. In most of the internet, they are used, RSA-PSS and RSA-PKCS. In case of cryptocurrencies, the elliptic curve signatures are more popular. Even in the rest of the world, they are becoming more popular, but cryptocurrencies did much good to the elliptic curve schemes. I spoke about non-repudiation, so I'll skip this. The key messages, only the sender knowing the secret signing key can generate a valid signature. And everyone who knows the public verification key, they can validate a signature. All right, so now let's quickly go over the concept of a blockchain. This is a brief history. blockchains, they gained popularity mainly from 2009 when Bitcoin came, and even initially Bitcoin was not so popular. I remember, like, I was offered to purchase Bitcoins and I did not buy them. Okay? So they were not very popular. But we somewhere in 2013 end, Bitcoin prices, they exploded. Okay? Up till 2013, mainly Bitcoin was mostly used by criminals. Okay, but in 2013, Bitcoin became mainstream. Towards the end of it, and the prices they exploded just like anything, and that's when people noticed, and that's when blockchain itself became a popular concept. Okay? But this concept of blocks has been around at least since 1991, and even the proof of work that is used in blockchain, that has been around since, like, at least uh, around mid 90s, etc. That was known. Okay? I was using blockchains in 2006 for my research. Okay? But at that time, we did not call them blockchain, we used to call them something else. Okay? So, yeah, in 91, this concept starts. This is in this chain of blocks. 98, decentralized digital currency concept comes into picture. Digital currency itself was already out there way back in 88. So that's the brief history. And now at 2021, the race is on. People are just trying to create better blockchains, with much different properties. With the many different crypto coins that you see around, they are based on the different kind of blockchains that are there. And we won't be able to go into all the details. Uh, but let's look at the some of the what is blockchain? It's an immutable ledger. What do I mean by immutable? That means once you write something to the ledger, you cannot change it. That's a proof. It's a provable thing. It's acceptable in the code of law. That yes, what's written here is correct, and nothing else is correct. Okay? Means what's here is correct. Nothing else we don't know. Okay? It's usually a growing list of records, so you keep adding to this ledger. Okay? As we said, altering the records is infeasible. If you want to change something in these records, you might have to change the whole chain. Okay? Especially once you change a one entry, after that everything gets changed. So you'll have to change back. So it requires a lot of effort. So altering these records is infeasible. And this is infeasibility is kind of guaranteed by cryptography, especially this infeasibility is guaranteed by the hash functions. Also, for when we talk about blockchains, especially in current days, what we require is we don't want any central authority to be there. As we said, we don't believe one single person. We don't want any middlemen, no intermediaries. So, like when we do transactions, we don't want to pay transaction fees, or at least not so high transaction fees. We don't want to pay. We want these records that we have on the blockchain to be verifiable, auditable, where anybody can verify that the records are correct and it can be audited. We want to ensure its integrity, that nobody has manipulated the blockchain. We want the accountability of the transactions, in the sense that if somebody conducts a transaction, they should not be able to say that I never did it. Okay. And we may also want confidentiality. This property may or may not be there in all the currencies, but this is something that is many people require this. Okay. And it must be robust. So robust means, like, when we want to add more users, we should be able to add. If we want to remove users, we should be able to remove users, and it should not break down easily, okay, by some changes, in some simple changes in the world. So in that sense, if you think of it, Bitcoin as a currency is not robust yet. The price fluctuates, the value of a Bitcoin fluctuates so much, right? The blockchain itself of it is pretty robust, though, but the currency is not. So in general, like, let's this is a blockchain ecosystem, like how a simple blockchain looks like. So you have a user, and okay, some of my arrows seem to have gone. Let's not worry about that. I'm running out of time. So we have a user who wants to conduct a transaction. So they request for a transaction. So when they conduct this transaction and they mention this, they kind of broadcast to the blockchain that, hey, I'm conducting this transaction. And this transaction is then added to a block. A block is created for this set of new transactions, and we create something called block. So block is a set of transactions usually, and we'll see a little bit more about a block in a couple of minutes. Okay. So this requested transaction is then broadcasted to a P2P network. So this network is distributed among think of it, it's broadcasted to everybody for the time. So, and then when it's sent to this network, they verify whether this transaction is a valid transaction or not. Again, I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, but basically that whether if you are saying that I'm giving 10 rupees to Vishal, do you really own those 10 rupees? Are they your 10 rupees? Can you even give those 10 rupees to Vishal or not? Okay. So they can, in that sense, they verify. And then usually when you broadcast this, they want to, if you are giving this 10 rupees to Vishal now, you should not be able to say later that I never gave it. So they verify whether you've signed it correctly, you've created the signatures correctly. Okay. So such kind of checks are performed, and once they are performed and the transactions in the block, they are then added. Once they validate the transaction is complete, so the recipient, they can accept your money, for example, and they say, okay, I'm not being cheated. Okay? You are giving me real money and not money that you don't have. So once the transaction is complete, this block which has this records of all this valid transaction, that is added to the blockchain. And sometimes this instead of, as I said, instead of, you can either add one transaction at a time, or sometimes you just create a set of transactions in a given period and you put that in a block. Okay, and so this transaction, this block may be created by one single transaction or a set of transactions. And also when this block, when it is added to the block, there is something called consensus, like who adds it, how it is added. We won't go into all that things, they are just too much. Okay. So this is how a blockchain may look like. Again, my arrows are not showing here for some reason, I don't know why, but anyway. So this is how a block may look like. So this initial block that is empty, there's nothing in there. So usually they will add some sort of a nonce. Nonce is just a random number which has not, and it is nonce. You guys should know it's just a number used once. Okay. Sometimes simple counters do the trick, but many times counters don't do the trick, and we want these nonce to be generated randomly. They should not be predictable. So the first block ever block in a blockchain is usually an empty block. There is no transaction. Okay? And then later you may have transactions, you may have users. So you can, let's say we have this block that initiated with this 5 users, A, B, C, D, E. A had 9 units of currency, B had 8 units, or sometimes these are called coins, so you can say call them coins. C had 15 coins, D had 11 coins, and E had 17 coins, for example. Okay? And in this block, maybe E gave B 1 coin, and let's say C gives E 6 coins. So we will, of course, take more details of these coins. Think of them as serial numbers of the notes on the currency notes that you see. So all those are added to represent which exact coins. And then that block is added to the system. For the third block, or let me call it the second block, because the first block we usually will call the 0th block. Okay? So between the first block and second block, let's say 4 transactions happened. Okay? A might have given B 2 coins, B might have given E 1 coin, E might have given B 3 coins, and D might have given A 4 coins. So then we take this transactions. Accordingly, also note that the accounts of A, B, C, D, A, they also have been changed. So A gave, let's say, A gave 2 coins to, sorry. In the previous transaction, you see that E gave B 1 coin and C gave E 6 coins. So that has changed in the accounts of A, B, C, D, and E. So A did not receive money or give money, but B received 1 coin. So B's account has gone to 9. Similarly, C gave away 6 coins. So from 15, it has become 9. So that is noted there. Okay. So this account update also happens to keep note that who has how much money. So in the second block, we have this transaction. So in third blocks, if you see, the accounts have been updated again. A gave away 2 coins but received 4 coins. So we say A has 11 coins now. Usually we'll also note this some sort of serial number for these coins, etc., to keep track of everything. Okay. And similarly, B's account has been updated. And now again, during this gap, some more transactions happened and we add those to the block. So what's in these blocks? So usually there will be a block version. Okay? There will be a McClary root hash of this, all the transactions that are there of that. There will be a hash of the previous block in the chain. And then the nonce will be there. There will be n bits. I don't want to go in the n bits, but timestamp will be there. Some transaction counter and the record of transactions, they will be there in this block. Yeah. So yeah, that's about blockchain. Okay, I want to do. Okay, I'll do proof of work in a quick. So let's quickly look at Bitcoin. And this is a peer-to-peer internet currency that allows decentralized transfers of value between 2 parties. This is the most popular cryptocurrency. Invented by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. This Satoshi Nakamoto, he could be just one single person, or he could be a group of people calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who they are. They are anonymous. Initially, they had a slow start between 2009 to 2011. Somewhere in 2011, Bitcoin started getting used by criminals, mainly on this dark website called Silk Road. So Silk Road is, think of it like as an Amazon website for criminals. Okay, they are selling drugs, there guns, there even tanks they could buy. You could sell your services as a contract murderer or so any criminal activities. So and then Dread Pirate Robots again, that was another criminal group. So up till 2013, that was mainly used by these criminals. But so by the end of 2013, the price of Bitcoin that skyrockets. So while in let's recall way back in I think 2009, like I was offered to like 1,000 bitcoins for $1, okay? Something like that. Okay? And nobody cared about that time. It was just a play currency. It was just a toy for me. So I never cared for it. Okay? I had lots of currencies. And as I grew, I stopped playing with toys. So I stopped playing with Bitcoin also. But in 2013, the price skyrockets. And then I thought, okay, I should have kept my toys. Okay, so at that time, the world notices anyway. So the currency in this Bitcoin is, of course, the Bitcoins. Okay. The documentation is done on what we call ledger, what we talk about. The blockchain is the part where these transactions are cleared, okay, and they are stored. Okay. And the clearing house, who does this clearing? Who records these transactions? Who transfers actual money? Finally, how it happens? That is validated by miners. That is approved by miners. And form of transaction, that how it happens, it's P2P, and it is relatively anonymous. The anonymous word every book uses, but frankly, Bitcoin transactions are not really anonymous. They are what we call pseudonymous. Right? So I should have put the footnote here. Anyway. And there are 2 levels of verification. One is that the source is legitimate, and the other is that the coins are legitimate. Okay? That The person who's giving the coins, that's the right person. They are allowed to give. And the coins are legitimate means that coins have not already been spent. They have not already been used. So, okay. Yeah, let me skip this. I'll revisit some important things anyway later. So this is, you can think of it as Bitcoin, you can think of it as a generic scenario. Okay. So how in a digital currency, these are basically this, your miners and users are there. So we have this, let's say 3 users, P1, P2, P3, and there is the group of miners, M1, M2, M3, and so on. So these users, when they do conduct any transaction, let's say P1 sent some money to P2, and they sent some money to T2. And this could not means we are talking about currency, but this could be any form of transaction. It could not always be just money. Okay? It could be any transaction. They let it broadcast it to everybody in the network, in particular to the miners. So miners check these transactions, they validate these transactions. Okay? And once they validate the transactions, once the transfer is complete, they add this transaction blocks. Okay, sometimes a group of transactions, this blocks to the chain, okay? And they keep adding this. And how the transfer happens? Well, what basically this is happens in this form. The person who wants to give the money to another person, they say, "Hey, I Vishal Saraswat, I'm giving my coin to, let's say, Ravi, and I sign this with my secret key." Okay? So I sign this message with my secret key, and I publish this. Okay? So with the message and the signature. Okay? And basically, that is as simple as the transaction, as simple as that, or let's call it transaction record is as simple as that. When I give money, I just kind of write it down and sign it, and that becomes the transaction or a transaction record once it is accepted. Of course, miners are there going to validate the signature, that this signature has been created by Vishal or not. If not, then this is not a correct transaction. They reject this. When they said that I'm going to give this coin 3, do I really own this coin? Can I give this coin? Okay. So if suppose I originally own the coin, but I might have already given it to somebody else. So they check through all the records that in past have I given this money to somebody else, or in past did I ever had this money? When did I get this money? Okay. So though they go through all the records to ensure that I really have this coin. Okay. And yes, I have the coin. Yes, I am the one who is signing. I am the owner of the coin, and my signature is correct. So they validate this, and then they accept. So later, when I want to give the same coin to somebody else, even though my signature might be correct, they will not allow me to give the coin to somebody else. We all have seen in news like a particular piece of land that is sold away to somebody twice. Yeah, that I sell the land to somebody once today and somebody next day. That happens many times. So to prevent that, whenever you purchase land, you should go to the municipality and check the registry that I indeed hold the land or not. So in that sense, that's how the double spending of this, the double selling of this land is avoided. And similarly, this ledger, this records, they avoid this double spending of the same money. Okay? So they will not accept this. They won't allow this transaction to happen. They won't validate this. So the recipient, they should not accept. Okay? So yeah, that's I already explained this steps. So first we verify if the signature is correct, and the second we verify whether we on the sender is owning this coin or not. Okay, then only we accept. Then only we count it as a valid transaction. how to store money. Basically, this storage of money is also by initially you have some money, you obtain that money by purchasing or by mining, and that is recorded, and then all the transfers, they are recorded in the blockchain. So if you are in case of cash that we have, there is a physical transfer. So if I give away my 5 rupee note to you, then I don't have that 5 rupee note anymore. In case of cryptocurrency, I still have my 5 rupee note, but because I have made it public that I gave my 5 rupee note to you, the ownership has transferred. So next time I can't use that 5 rupee, even though I have that digital file, that is, I cannot use it. That's the idea. So then there is a concept of proof of work. Basically, I'll very quickly say this. The point is this: we spoke about this blocks are added and the block hash is added to the chain, but who adds these blocks? Okay, miners. But why should we trust the miners? Which miner gets to add? There are more than one miner. Which miner adds? Okay. So for this, there was this concept of proof of work that usually there is a puzzle involved, okay? And these miners who are there, they try to solve the puzzle. All the miners they try, and the first one to solve this puzzle, they get a reward. Okay. And this reward, in case of Bitcoin, it's a Bitcoin. In case of most of the coins, it's some sort of coin. Okay. But it could be something else also. Okay. So they get a reward, and this reward could be, where does this reward come from? Who gives it? Basically, the ecosystem. In case of Bitcoin, basically when the miners create mines a block, basically new currency is created, new Bitcoins are created, which this miner gets. In some other cases, in some other coins, instead of new currency being created, they may get it through the people who are involved in the transaction. They may pay it as a fee. Okay? So that's person who gets the right solution. That solution can be verified easily. Usually, the puzzle solving, as it happens with puzzles, solving puzzle requires a lot of time. But once you know the answer, verifying whether the answer is correct or not, that is quick, right? So in that sense, once a person says, "Hey, I've got a solution," everybody can verify, and they say that, "Okay, this guy got it. He gets a reward, or she gets a reward, or whoever gets a reward. Maybe the machine gets a reward." Okay, and that block is added to the blockchain. Okay, and also the solution to this puzzle, solution to whatever this value they got, that becomes part of the next puzzle that is going to be added. So when you are going to mine the next block, when you are going to try to add the next block, at that time this solution will be required, and that will become part of it. So here basically the puzzle is that you have this hash function. You want to basically find the hash value of the block in such a way that the output is of a certain format. Okay? So I'm not going to go into the details. That is too much work, and I'm not going to go into the consensus. Consensus is about yeah, how we basically how we decide that which block gets added. So in Bitcoin, they use a consensus which is called majority. If 51% people say that this is a correct block, then that is accepted. So the way we choose our leaders in most of the elections, right? The person who gets more votes, they get they win the election, right? So in your constituency, 10 people might have might be candidates, but one finally wins, right? So in that sense, that's the idea that majority wins, okay, for consensus in Bitcoin. In other coins, there are other way of deciding which block gets in, and we won't go into that. I'm out of time, so I'll stop here and I'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. Now it's open for the questioners. If anybody have any queries, please post your questions or you can unmute yourself and directly ask the questions.
Hello, sir. This is Nachiket.
Yeah.
Sir, I do have a question. Is it okay to is it a good idea to invest in a cryptocurrency? Like what, sir?
Very good question. It's difficult to answer. Frankly, I personally, as I said, right, I had been offered cryptocurrencies, and way back in 2011 or 2009, I did not buy Bitcoin when it was like 1,000 for $1. Okay? So I personally, even now, I will not buy cryptocurrency. Okay, uh, I will not. So that is my personal thing. But people are buying it. People are making money. Some people, it's a personal thing. Okay, maybe I am just not a risk taker or whatever. At least when it comes to cryptocurrency. So I cannot give you an advice on this, but right now the cryptocurrency market is very hot, very volatile. So if you are smart, you can make a lot of money. And people, as I said, if I did not give my crypto, like if I had those bitcoins now, I would be a billionaire, right? So yeah, means you can rule, but I stand by my decision. It depends. So
Hello, sir. Sir, I have a question.
yeah.
Sir, in India, so there is no law stating any rigid law stating how the cryptocurrency should work, especially in India itself. So, sir, what do you suggest? Will can the market be for cryptocurrency? For example, from a developer point of view.
Uh, uh,
Hello. So you're muted, sir.
yeah.
So Lakshmi, what you can do now, you can just bring up our SciSec newsletter. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Actually, it's 4 o'clock and I have another meeting now, so they had joined. So sorry. What was the question? Somebody was asking a question.
Sir, I was asking, sir, since there is no rigid law in India regarding cryptocurrency and anything related to it. So,
Yeah.
what do you suggest the market can be from a developer perspective? Like, if I'm developing a product that is based on blockchain technology, so, sir, what can I do so that it does not backfire?
Okay. Blockchain is the core technology that a cryptocurrency uses, and blockchains are used at many other places other than cryptocurrencies. Okay, we get to see cryptocurrencies most of the times, but right now blockchain is itself is a very hot topic. It's used in supply chain management, it's used in medical fields, it's used in agriculture, and it has like humongous applications. Okay, for many privacy, for secure multi-party computations. Like nowadays, the world is evolving, world is getting more and more connected. That means people want to collaborate together, but sometimes, let's say, you and I we may want to work together, but you have some input data that you don't want to share with me because right now you are new or you don't trust me, but we want to work together. Let's say Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they are competitors. They want to work together on some product, but they don't want to share their intellectual property. How to do that? So that's where a lot of crypto comes into the picture, but also a lot of blockchain comes into the picture. So blockchain potential is not going anywhere. Even if all the cryptocurrency get banned by all the world, all the countries, blockchain is accepted. Even government is still using blockchain. It's encouraging blockchain. There are special programs in government of India and almost every government in the world. So you
Thank you,
don't.
sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you said cryptocurrency is not controlled by any body, sir, individual
Yeah.
body or something. So, what determines the value of a coin, or maybe how the value of a Bitcoin is
Who determines the value of your
determined,
note?
sir?
The 100 rupee note that you have in your wallet, who determines that value?
The government of India, sir.
Paper. It's a piece of paper, right?
Yes, sir.
So value of anything is according to perception of people. Okay? Let's say you have a crush on a particular person, and he or she, I don't care, like they eat some pav bhaji in a paper and then they throw away the paper. You might have a value for that paper because you have such much crush for that person, while it is a trash for somebody else. So in that sense, value right now is dependent on how many people are perceiving value in there. More people buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin value goes high. More people start accepting Bitcoin. More businesses start accepting Bitcoin. The value goes high. Okay, so like if you are following Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, you will see that Tesla CEO Elon Musk, once he announced that Tesla will accept Bitcoin, the Bitcoin prices went so high, like 4 times. And then one day he said, "Oh no, we won't accept Bitcoin." The prices came down, tumbling down from 80,000 to 30,000. So just because Tesla will accept or not accept, the value goes up and comes down. So yeah, value depends on the users, who is businesses who are accepting, and on that. Yeah.
Sir, so like you're saying, the cryptocurrency is not immune to control by higher powers or popularity.
Yes and no. Because as I was talking about the miners who are validating these transactions, okay, if these miners they become corrupt, okay, and like your consensus protocol, for example, in Bitcoin, if 51% people say that this is right, then that becomes right. Okay, again, let's look at our political scenario. Okay, I'm sure that there might be many candidates who are out there in your constituency or in the parliament who you don't think are right, okay? Who you don't think that they are correct. Okay? They should not be there. They should have lost the elections, but still they won, right? Because majority of people selected them. Now, majority of people could be corrupt sometimes. Right? A lot of things happen in our parliament which we sometimes don't accept. We don't think that should have happened, but it happens, right? So right now, that is also a big deal. That a lot of these coins that are there, they are controlled by these miners who we don't even know who's the miner. So it could be actually a government who's controlling the whole Bitcoin scenario. It could be the whole, let's say China is controlling the whole Bitcoin. We don't know. So in that sense, yes, publicly a government is not controlling. Publicly it is depends on individuals, but it is like saying that your vote has value. You will get to decide who the prime minister will be. But do you really? So it's majority who decides, and who controls the majority? I don't know. I've seen in elections that the leaders they come and they give liquor to all the liquor, pressure cookers, TVs, and they win the election. So it's possible. So yeah, it's a theoretical question, and I really have to go. I have another meeting that started at 4. I thought this will end at 3:30, and we would have a half an hour, but we started almost at 3. So otherwise, my plan was 2:30 to 3:30 presentation, and then half an hour for you guys. But what we can do is you guys can post your questions in the chat. Maybe Ravi or somebody, they can just copy paste those questions, send it to me, and I can at some point respond to those questions, or we can have another session at some point, but address those questions.
Yeah, Dr. Vishal, we have the video completely on YouTube, and we have shared the link with all the participants. They can write on the comments section of the YouTube. Probably you can respond there itself.
Great. So I'll do that, and I'll join the meeting right now. I really have to go.
Sure. No problem. Thank you for your time. That was fantastic.
Thank you, guys. And
very much privileged to have you.
Yep. Thank you. I'll
Sorry,
join the.
we had to delay it by 15 minutes. Sorry.
No worries. I'll just join the.
Yes. Please carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Currency, Lakshmi, sorry about it.
Yes, Priya madam, probably you can play the video, the validatory video of Brain Tonic 2 and also the results.
Yes,
and
sir.
probably we can conclude
Yes, sir.
formally here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Brain Tonic event 2.0 was held on 15th, 16th, and 19th. Now we are playing the video related to the announcement of the results, final results. Here it goes. Yeah, congratulations to the winners Ashish Srinivas from NIE and then Raghavendra Ji, the runner-up, and also all the participants who had put efforts and then ensured that they attended this event, competed in this event. Thank you one and all for your successful participation. Kindly provide your feedback. The feedback link is there in the chat box. Asiki sir, your thoughts please on the event.
Yeah, congratulations to the winners. I did witness that the program was fantastic. It went really well, Brain Tonic 2. So hope it continues and the chain of coordinators continue the good work what the seniors have set. So it was well begun, well continued. It should be better continued. So that's all from my end. Over to you, Priya ma'am. Probably we can conclude.
Yes, sir. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Arsiki sir. Thank you, Ranjan sir, and all the dignitaries who was there. Thank you, all the participants, for making time and attending this event. Thank you all. Good day.